The hero critic was wondering where his sidekick Meister was once again. He's on vacation. The hero critic was fuming on the inside. Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage. I have reviewed almost 500 indie movies on the channel, and today I want to talk about this year's Tamil language fantasy action or superhero movie Maaveeran. It's the second film written and directed by Madonne Ashwin, and like his predecessor Mandela, it's another winner. Unfortunately, I didn't see it at a cinema. As a matter of fact, it was playing here in Vienna. But I think the initial reviews weren't all that great, and you have to know that it's an hour-long ride to the cinema. And with the movie almost clocking in at 3 hours, that's a pretty big commitment. Now, after just 1 month, it was released on Amazon Prime for streaming, and I certainly recommend checking it out. It's a really fun and fresh spin on the whole mass action formula. You know, in which one guy has to fight a lot of corrupt politicians and officials, and usually he does so pretty effortlessly, because he's played by a big star and audiences are just into this kind of stuff. Maaveeran, which translates to the Great Warrior, does things a little bit differently. It presents us with a different kind of hero, actually someone who isn't a hero at all, at least in the beginning. Sivakarthikeyan, who I have only seen in Doctor prior to this, and who I absolutely loved in Maaveeran, plays our protagonist Satya. The movie begins with a short animated segment about the titular Great Warrior, and how he's fighting some big and powerful enemy. But Satya is no such great warrior. He is the one who writes and draws the comic adventures of that warrior. But he himself is someone who wants to stay away from any kind of trouble. Someone who prefers to just endure hard situations and adjust to them. Which is very much to the dislike of his mother Ishwari, played by Sarita. Even more so because her late husband, his late father, apparently was very brave and outspoken against injustice. Satya is not, and so he agrees that he, his mother and sister are being relocated to a new apartment complex, which is part of some kind of government scheme. And at first, that apartment complex looks very promising, and we get the film's first and only real big song and dance sequence, which is Sina Sina, a really great song and just fantastic sequence overall. Such a fresh rhythm and such an impressive massive scene with hundreds of extras. The soundtrack was composed by Shankar, and this specific song was sung by none other than Anirudh Ravichandra. And right after the song, right after everybody moved into that new building, everything, as you expect, begins to fall apart. The timing is so perfect, and the whole storytelling so simple but yet also so on point that it's all pretty engaging and also funny. Maaveeran isn't labeled as a comedy, but it's really fun. Not just when the real story kicks in, which I'm about to go into, but even from the beginning. Or maybe I just find it really amusing when things that are supposed to be really solid and make you feel safe just crumble like they are made out of rubble. Of course, at its heart, it's not a laughing matter. And I did indeed immediately think that this will be for me, because with an injustice as big as this, putting people who have nothing else in such horrible apartments just to gain some kind of political advantage, it just screams that it will be all about social justice in the end, and making the ones responsible for this pay. And that sounds like a pretty good and cathartic time. Like in his previous film Mandela, filmmaker Madonne Ashwin is tackling social issues in a very light-hearted and fresh way. He also brings back his former lead actor Yogi Babu for a nice supporting role as Kumar, one of the construction workers who is constantly there to do patchwork, because that's the only thing you can do with a building as messed up as this one. He crosses the path of Satya every now and then, almost becoming something of a sidekick to him. And Satya himself obviously becomes the savior figure of the people living at that place, but in a pretty cool way. He becomes a hero who still doesn't want to be a hero. And after around 40 minutes or so, in which the movie pretty flawlessly hooked us, he almost dies. And when he comes back to life, he's not alone. From that point on, there's a voice coming from above. the voice of a narrator who constantly narrates things that are about to happen to Satya in the next few seconds. And also a narrator who regards Satya as this great warrior and pushes him in the direction of being a superhero. So many times we have seen mass movies in which the hero is able to parry each punch coming at him, in which the hero is able to beat everyone, most of the time pretty effortlessly. But here, when some goons are trying to kick the shit out of Satya and he's all of a sudden able to defend himself, there's a reason for that. The narrator, who telegraphs everything for him. And this stranger-than-fiction approach is a pretty fun spin on the whole hero formula. The ordinary man who's more than meets the eye. And again, the storytelling, how this kind of superhero ability is introduced and then executed, is pretty spot on and pretty fun as well. With the camera work, Sivakarthikeyan always looking above, and the editing. It also adds to the cool and fun vibe that the voice of the narrator is provided by Vijay Sethupathi, who adds epicness and irony at the same time. At first, I thought that Satya will embrace the role of the hero pretty quickly and that the movie would shift into more conventional but still very entertaining mass movie fare. But to my surprise, he stays very much in character and he just wants out of it and not fight back at all, which is kind of refreshing and also used for comedic effect. There's for example this really fun sequence in which the villain, the corrupt minister, played by Miskin, is coming to his place to seek an apology. But instead, things play out very differently. But I also have to say, the movie prolongs Satya's character arc a bit too much for my taste. Sivakarthikeyan is super charming in the role. He's so likable that you excuse his cowardice. And I mean, not everyone has to be or can be an ass-kicking David vs. Goliath kind of hero. But with a runtime of almost 3 hours, there came a point for me where it got a little bit old that he's not willing to fight back and even selling out to be left alone. In a movie like this and with a premise like this, we are waiting for and looking forward to these moments in which the bad guys get their deserved punishment. And they do, but it's really stretched out and I felt the pacing in the second half could have been faster. Unfortunately, it's also another movie in a list of way too many that pretty much completely sidelines the female supporting role. At least Satya's mother is pretty prominent from beginning to end, but I thought Aditi Shankar was so well introduced as Neela in the first half that it was once again a shame not to get her more involved in the story in the second half. There are 2 crucial scenes with her, one very Final Destination-like on a street, which I thought should have had more consequences, and then another one where she gives an important speech. And yet I felt she was a bit wasted. I also felt the very ending, or not the very ending, but the ending that we get before the end credits are rolling, before we then get a rather extensive mid-credit sequence, I felt that ending was really unnecessary. Especially since a few seconds later we get that mid-credit sequence. I just thought they should have just ended it like that and not do this cheap misdirection. I felt it didn't really fit the tone and again was useless anyway. But the actual finale of the movie, that was pretty cool and intense. And not just because of the action, but because of the character arc, even if it took too long until we got there. Overall though, I had a pretty wonderful time with Maaveeran and I think it's such a fun and fresh spin on the hero formula. So in German I'd say, Filmmemacher Madonne Ashwin gelingt auch mit seinem zweiten Werk ein größtenteils schön runder Unterhaltungsfilm mit echt charismatischem und komplett engagiertem Hauptdarsteller, wichtiger sozialer Note und einem frischen Spin auf das typische Heldending. Zu lang, aber trotzdem klasse. I give Maaveeran 7 out of 10. It's more like 7.4, but I don't do that.
என்ன பார்த்தா முட்டாக்கு மாத்திரிதா.
Alright, that's it like always. Comment below and let me know what you think about Maaveeran. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and also on Patreon, simply at TheJimmyCage. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like, and make sure you hit that bell for all I have to tell.